Hello, Stephen White, Trekboy89 here. I just watched Star Trek Discovery Episode 8, if memory serves, at about 3 a.m. in the morning, which was not a smart idea if I wanted to sleep. God, very mixed feelings. The episode started off horrifically. They did the usual previously on Enterprise on Discovery, but they used footage from the original Star Trek, but they didn't use the remastered footage. They didn't do a standard previously. They basically had the old scenes popping and twisting, and it just was really insulting. They were trying to make the show look like a joke instead of taking it seriously and just treating it like a previous episode and just editing together the shots like they would. They just made it cartoony, and it was so fucking offensive. It made me fucking sick. I swear to God, I just switched I had to turn the fucking show off for a minute because I'm like, really? You are insulting the show and the fans of that show that much? You really just have to just... Ooh, it pissed me off. Just everything about it. The way they edited it, the way just the intention behind it, the fact they didn't use the remastered footage with the new planet or anything. They used they just were trying to make it look bad, and it was just so insulting. And I thought I was nearly going to do a review there and just not watch the rest of the fucking episode. And I said, no, you can't do that. So I started watching it, and then something amazing happened. They had Melissa George, the amazing Australian actress who I love, playing Vina. I never thought we'd go back to Talos. I never thought we'd see Vina again, and to have Melissa George play her was amazing. So they just went from one extreme of being condescending and insulting to fans and to Star Trek to a decent episode. It was actually decent. They handled the Talosians well. I mean, as much as they could without having to shell out a lot of money for the designs of the Talosians. So they were different. Now, is it all plausible they could have changed and evolved or appeared differently for some reason? I guess, but the reality is the Talosians were tiny, frail little ladies, elderly ladies who had been made up with giant heads to look like male aliens with developed brains, and they had an amazing look. Even now, that makeup is still good, and they made them look solid and rubbery, and yeah, the look didn't really work. But the story itself, I mean, Spock, I don't understand why being shown the images of the future was so difficult for him to process, unless it was... I guess he was being shown the future, not being shown images of the future, so I don't know why his brain broke. From that, I expected something far more complicated, more difficult, something he couldn't think his way out of, or something literally damaging to him. So I didn't really understand why it was a bit too simple. Once we got in there, we got into his brain, it was a bit too simple. And but the scenes with Pike and Vina, where she appears on the Discovery, were kind of beautiful. I mean, she had the illusion of him for all those years, but he just had the memory of her. So to see her again, I guess, I mean, that was all nice. The Talosian Cave Underground looked fine. It didn't look exactly like the show. It didn't look much like the show, but it still felt kind of the same. They got the basics down, but I'm still so offended by that opening little slap in the face we got. And they knew what they were doing. This is so fucking annoying. and then it just undermines the rest of the episode on some level. And obviously I'll be editing that part of that episode off if I ever want to watch it again. It was just so hokey, and it was like when the DVDs of Star Trek came out in Australia around 2003. They had a preview, and it was like, in the future it was funky. And they had this retro 60s preview of the show, and it kind of was fun, but it was almost like they were trying to do something like that on some subtle. I can't get past it. I need to move on. But I wrote out my notes. Yes, so insulting, disrespectful, trying to make the 60s show a joke. Previously segment, hokey, didn't use the remastered footage. Yeah, covered all that. Now, for some reason, Pike is speaking to Georgiou as a hologram when we just established... Oh, actually, no, that was on the Enterprise. They were tearing them out. They were still using holograms on Discovery. So for a moment, I thought they'd gone backwards on that, and then I remembered he was talking to Number One on Discovery about Enterprise. It wasn't actually Discovery. So, yep, my mistake there. The other part of the story was Culber's difficulty in living again. Stamets is trying very desperately to get him back to make a connection, and he feels he's not the same person. He feels the person he was is dead and has died, and he's angry, and of course he takes on Ash, and they have a big fight, and Saru doesn't stop it, which did feel very unevolved for 21st century humans, as they were supposed to be in Star Trek. But the idea was it was cathartic, and he felt they needed it. So Culber basically says, I don't even know who I am, and Ash is like, who do you think you're talking to? Because of course his identity is a mess as well, because we still don't even know what they did to him, because we had two versions of the process and what he actually is, so we don't even know what he is still. So yes, I mean, Stamets tried very hard. He kept all his stuff. He didn't let go on some level, and then he's trying to bring him back. He wants him back, and he basically broke up with him. He basically said, you need to move on and let me move on, because I'm not who I was. And whether that's real or whether that's just the fear and the shock of what's happened and trying to process it as a reality, and how they do not have him going through some sort of therapy. I mean, the original... Yeah. Just letting him stumble through it doesn't seem very realistic. I mean, I know... Stamets is a scientist, that's all, and he shouldn't really be dealing with him and his trauma alone. So that's as far as that went, although Pike did assert his captainhood again and tell Saru never to allow a fist fight or anything like that, any sort of resolution to any solution that way again, which was good. I mean, they have this annoying habit in Prime Star Trek where they do something they're not supposed to do, they shouldn't do, is wrong, the characters would never do, and then say, but we shouldn't have done that, and this is how we should do it. This is what we are. This is who we are. But yet, but we don't want to be that. So we want to be common and contemporary. So we'll just act like 20th century humans, and then pay some lip service to our actual 21st century evolved humans. So it's a frustrating thing that they've basically ignored 300 years of evolution in society and humanity, which is part of Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek, that these people were almost like superheroes because they were these not perfect but much more evolved human beings. And we do seem to have regressed from Deep Space Nine through to here. And it just takes away some of the special from Star Trek. It takes away from what made it unique. And these are some of the problems that we still have with Discovery. Um, so let's see what happens in the story. Okay, so we find out Spock is innocent. He didn't kill anybody. That's just sections 31 setting him up so they can make him an outlaw and capture him so they can get a hold of his memories because they want to know what he knows about the future. In the future, some power sends out a bunch of, looks like missiles to a series of planets, basically all the planets in the galaxy apparently, with life or intelligent life or Federation maybe, and destroys them all. So Spock has been, they're trying to avoid that future. He talked about the current timeline, and we did see into the past where I guess he confirmed that he saw the Red Angel and it told him where Michael was, and he saw her being killed, and he convinced his parents to actually go out and find her. They found her exactly where he thought she would be, and the question is now, did he change the timeline? Of all the things that Michael did in her amazing Mary Sue life, has she altered and created another timeline and multiple different realities? Like, how many times? So, I guess we're dealing with the Prime Universe, not the canon universe, and we're dealing with an alternative version of that. Again, every time time is altered, it creates a new reality. So, where are we? Where is Discovery? My initial frustration with the show was that they were telling us it's Prime, which we thought was the canon universe, because we didn't know about the licensing issues and the fact that Leonard Nimoy was playing a different Spock. He wasn't playing Spock from the original series from the canon universe. He was playing the Prime version of that character. So there was frustration that they were telling us that it's the original Star Trek when it clearly isn't. Now that we know it's its own universe, it's basically a prequel to the Star Trek movies, to the Kelvinverse. It's its own universe, which is how the only way I could deal with the show was thinking of it as its own universe, its own show, its own reality, and being separate from canon, and just ignoring the producers or whoever said it was Prime, which we then thought was the renamed canon, when now we know it is a separate universe created by a separate license by a separate company. So yes, that part of it has frustrated me, and I've kind of lost the plot. I was going, oh yes, that's right. I was going to go through the basic story. Yep, they're chasing them. They get to the planet. Of course, the Talosians use the power of illusion to let them think they've beamed Spock and burn him onto the ship, when they actually allow them to leave in the shuttle and reunite with Discovery, which of course had to get there through traditional means because the android, I've forgotten her name, Ariam or something, she's sabotaging this chip. She sabotaged the spore drive. Yet they still can't, and she framed Ash, which is just too obvious. I can't believe Pike would actually think he would do it and then sign off on it. Or did she make it so obvious he could defend himself later? I don't know. But that part of it didn't work really for me either. But now we have the Discovery running from Starfleet with their fugitive murderer Spock, which have been set up from Section 31, which makes them the bad guy, which hopefully means they're going to get taken down and erased and then have to come back secretly later, which would make them fit into canon. But what does it matter? Because this is not the canon universe anyway. It's good and bad. It means nothing matters, but at the same time it means nothing matters. So it doesn't matter what they do. They're not destroying our Star Trek. They're not messing up our Star Trek. It's separate. So I've kind of made my peace with that. I wanted them to originally make a Kelvinverse prequel series with Pike and that. I thought that would be the best way for them to go to do a TV series, because you're going to get the new fans from the new show, the old fans that don't mind a prequel, and they should have just gone that way, and they sort of, it's like they're altering the show a little bit. So yeah. Yep, that's the story. That's everything covered basically. Really offended by the preview, the way it treated the original series footage and the series itself. I think it actually speaks to how they consider it. The rest of the show was handled very well, despite the visual differences, which are dictated to by the licensing issues. Obviously, they did some of it right. They did the sound effects right, which seems to be something that is throughout the whole series. So I'm guessing the sound design is not the same as makeup and ship design and stuff like that, which they haven't been able to use. They use it sometimes, I guess. They do have the access to it, but they have to pay for it, and apparently they have to pay for it, and they can't market it. They couldn't create the Talosians as they were and then sell toys of them, basically. So, hello, Stephen White Trek Boy here again. Yes, I was doing my review of the last Star Trek Discovery episode, if memory serves, and my video stopped. I'd gone through most of the episode, and the only thing I really had left to speak about was Spock and Burnham's memory. It was pretty much as described. Burnham was running away. She was afraid that Spock would follow. She was afraid that he'd get hurt if he was around her, because she was being targeted she felt she was going to be targeted by the Vulcan extremists, because they had a problem with Earth people on the planet, or trying to be a part of Vulcan society or culture, or I'm not exactly sure what their motivations was, but basically to stop Spock from following her and to get some distance, she basically insulted him. She disowned him. She said he was nothing. She said he was a freak, a half-breed. She basically was as horrible as she possibly could to crush him so he would leave her alone for his own good, and clearly she should have gone about it a different way. And obviously in this story, the young Spock was learning how to be human from her, and connecting to her and feeling love and feelings, I guess, without the shame he would feel when speaking to his father or dealing with Vulcans. So he got very close to her. She meant a lot to him, and she hurt him, and I guess that was where their relationship ended. He never forgave her for hurting him. After the experiences, she relived it, because they relived it for the Talosians to enjoy. She apologized. She was upset. Spock seemed to understand that it was more than strategy. It was a misguided act of love, and perhaps they will resolve their issues and end up being close again, or family. But it wasn't as complicated as I thought. It was more simple than I thought. But I guess it was just about the emotion, and that he was vulnerable at that time with her, and she hurt him. And he said afterwards he dedicated himself to being fully Vulcan. He rejected his human side after she hurt him, because obviously he realized he was vulnerable, and who wants to be hurt? Who wants to be in pain? So that's fine. I just wanted to comment on that, and this will be, I guess, the review part B, Spock and Burnham. So I guess the Talosians behaved. Basically, they helped Spock sort out his reality of the time travel memories and experiences he had, and the Red Angel, and they also managed to, while experiencing the emotions of Burnham and Spock and what they went through, managed to actually give them some closure. So maybe we'll see this bit of resolution to their issues. But yeah, aside from the disgusting way they handled the original series and the original series footage in the previously on section, the episode was okay, and Melissa George was amazing. The look and the feel of the Talosians was okay. Yep. Discovery keeps on getting better, but still undermining itself with just weird things. But I'm going to keep watching and keep reviewing and hopefully finding something to say, and hopefully you'll be joining me for that. So thanks. Bye.